We've got some big fights announced already for a One Championship for the 2025 calendar, but none are bigger than the fight that will headline 1172 at the Saitama Super Arena in Japan. We are here today, of course, to talk about Takeru versus Rodtang, the super fight. It is rescheduled for March 23rd, Saitama Super Arena in Japan. Let's pull this post straight up. There we go. We have it officially announced. Of course, this fight was supposed to take place at 1165 in January this year. Rodtang withdrew due to an injury, and the rest of this year has really, every single time one of these guys is announced to be fighting or they're shown on screen or something, this is the fight we've been talking about. This is the fight we've been leading up to, and finally, it will happen. Fingers crossed. Sunday, March 23rd, Saitama Super Arena in Japan. Welcome to the channel where we're going to talk about this announcement and, of course, the co-main event that we have had announced for this card. A little bit about the card in general as well. If you're new around here, then you won't know about the One Report. That is a series I do here on this channel every Monday where we talk about the biggest talking points, fight announcements, news, all of that stuff regarding One Championship from the past week. Of course, if you're watching this video on the day that is recorded, you will know that it is a Monday. Where is the episode of the One Report? That will be coming tomorrow. I thought that this was probably more pressing to get to, but there is a lot of stuff, honestly, to cover regarding One Championship over the past week. So do come and check out the One Report if you haven't already. On tomorrow's episode, we'll be talking about some of the fights we've had announced for Qatar. We'll be talking about Sage Northcutt leaving the promotion to join the PFL, a few things like that. And I'm sure there'll be a few more talking points that I can't remember off the top of my head, but we will get to that tomorrow because today is all about this fight right here, the flyweight kickboxing super fight, Takeru versus Rodtang. 5-round main event in Tokyo. It's been a long time coming. Like I said, Rodtang withdrew from their fight that was supposed to happen in January, as I'm sure a lot of you know already. Superlek ended up stepping in to defend his flyweight kickboxing title. He won that fight versus Takeru. I thought he put on a pretty great performance. Takeru had his moments in that fight, which speaks to his incredible heart, tenacity, toughness. He was able to nearly pull that one back. But Superlek, I think, was just, a cut above that night. And I don't think that necessarily, at the time, I thought, does that take away from the Rodtang fight? But of course, Superlek has beaten both of these guys in the past year. When you look at the run that Superlek is on right now, that knockout over Haggerty, of course, he's got a fight coming up at 1170 where he will defend the Bantamweight Muay Thai World Championship against Nico Carrillo because he is a two-sport, two-weight world champion now, Superlek. So I don't think that takes away from it. And I honestly wonder, I'm interested to get your guys' reaction to this in the comments below. So do drop that. Does this feel bigger than the first time it was booked? I think the fact that it's at Saitama Super Arena is a pretty big indicator that it does feel bigger. I mean, I think that if you were to look at the results of both men as of late, then maybe not. But I think in terms of having over a year to talk about this fight and to talk about it being rescheduled and where it was going to happen, how it was going to all work out, and also the multiple face-offs, which I think have added a lot of intensity to this fight. Before, of course, it was a dream fight. People have wanted to see it for a long time. Both these guys are two of the most exciting and entertaining strikers to watch in the world. And I would say Takeru in particular has shown that during his time in One. Rodtang has had some very good fights in the last year or so. The Dennis Purich one in kickboxing was a fantastic watch. The recent win over Jacob Smith wasn't quite as entertaining, I don't think, but the Purich one is legitimately, I would say a fight of the year contender for One Championship. And I think Takeru had one of those as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. But yeah, I'm interested to know what you guys think. I think that the intensity that they've shown towards each other in some of these face-offs does make it a little bit bigger. And like I said, the fact that we are getting it at the Saitama Super Arena instead of the Ariake Arena, which is where it was supposed to take place in January. I'm just going to look up the capacity of both of those because I know that, I'm a combat sports fan. I'm a pro wrestling fan. Of course, I know the legacy, the significance of the Saitama Super Arena. But, that says it all, right? Ariake Arena is 12,000 fixed seats, 15,000 capacity as a maximum, right? Obviously, one's entrance ramp and the ring itself will, change that. But I'm not sure exactly how much that would take up. But I would imagine quite a significant amount. So 15,000 max capacity. Saitama Super Arena, on the other hand, 37,000. That is absolutely incredible. And you would imagine that One Championship are going to stack this card with Japanese talent in order to sell those tickets. If I'm sure people remember this, but when this fight was announced for the Ariake Arena, the tickets were going very, very well. When Rodtang pulled out and Superlex stepped in, it did slow down quite a significant amount. And whilst that fight was still fantastic, and I was still very, very excited for that fight, it's Rodtang and Takeru, right? Those two guys are the draw. You could put on, even if you put on Rodtang versus, I don't know, one of the other guys in the flyweight division, probably, a Thai guy, something like that. It'd be a big fight, but it wouldn't be Rodtang versus Takeru. This is the one. This is the two superstars, superstar in kickboxing, superstar in Muay Thai, superstar in Thailand, superstar in Japan. It's a great clash of styles, a great clash of personalities. And this is the fight that really sells us. And if you're gonna ever try and do Saitama Super Arena, this is the one you try and do it for. And like I said, I would imagine we'll get some other pretty big matchups. You would imagine the majority of the Japanese fighters that one have got on their roster will be in action on this card. We do have one of those in the co-main event of the evening. I'll pull that up right now. That will be for the vacant flyweight world championship that was, of course, vacated by Demetrius Johnson at 1168 in September. It will be Johnson's former opponent, Adriano Moraes, of course, a former champion as well, taking on Yuya Wakamatsu in the co-main event. Let me pull up the article here that One Championship announced all of this good stuff with. Okay. So there you have it. The main event will see two of striking's top generational talents throw down. Let's scroll down through here. This is just a little bit about the comeback, the fight being cancelled. Let's have a look at Rodtang, shall we? So he, of course, withdrew from that fight against Superlek in January. He returned at 1167 to take on Dennis Puric in a 3-round kickboxing fight. Very entertaining fight. And we already kind of mentioned the rematch with Jacob Smith that took place. If there's one thing that's kind of defined Rodtang's year, I would say it's probably criticism. But Rodtang is so entertaining that I think that even when he is quite heavily criticized, first of all, a lot of fans aren't going to listen to any of that stuff. I think it is mostly the hardcore fans that are going to be like, oh, I'm not too happy with Rodtang. He's missing weight. He, of course, lost his one flyweight Muay Thai World Championship on the scales at 1169. With this fight against Takeru booked, I would really hope that there will be a vacant title fight for that flyweight belt. Two guys that have consistently, made flyweight and put on good performances. Off the top of my head, we recently had one Fight Night 26 where Kong Torney and Elias Mahmoudi picked up big wins over Nakrob Fairtex and Dennis Puric. So I would like to see those two guys matched up. That would be a fantastic fight. That would be, one of my most anticipated fights of 2025, I think. So for Rodtang, it's been a bit of a weird year. Like I said, he's faced some criticism. He's missed weight. He's lost his title. But going out there and putting on a show against Takeru in Japan, I think will redeem a lot of that, especially if there are no issues in the lead up to the fight regarding injuries, regarding criticisms of his commitment, regarding his weight. Please get Peter Miller Condition Nutrition involved. The guy has an incredible pass rate, especially for One Championship fighters, which, if you're a One Championship fan, you will know that the weigh-in days are pretty much always dramatic. And having a proper nutritionist around makes it so much more. It makes it run so much smoother. And I feel like One will put something in place to make sure that this fight happens this time around. We can't have a scenario again where, the first time Rodtang got injured, but like I said, he's missed weight and lost his title before going out there and beating Jacob Smith. So we can't afford, with an event at the Saitama Super Arena, that's a lot of fans to be disappointed if anything does happen. So I hope that there is, I don't know, somebody at least, you know, in communication with both of these camps to make sure that both guys hit the weight. I mean, Takeru, I don't think has a problem hitting flyweight. He's not the biggest of flyweights anyway, but nonetheless, let us go back to this announcement and we will pull up Takeru here, the natural born crusher, who, like I said, made his one championship debut in that fight against Superlek. He did lose that fight. Don't think it hurt his stock too much. For a while, I thought that the fight against Tant Zim was going to do that. I thought that this was going to derail this fight. Not beforehand. I thought Takeru would come through that fight and put on a show and look impressive. And then in that first round, he gets dropped by Myanmar's Tanzin, and you're like, oh my god, this fight against Rodtang, with Rodtang sat ringside, is going to fall apart in front of our very eyes. Takeru comes back into the fight, drops his man multiple times, gets the finish. It was, again, another fight of the year contender in one championship. That speaks to why this matchup between these two guys is so exciting, because they both put on these crazy fights. Yeah, I mean, Rodtang hasn't come nearly as close to losing as Takeru did in that fight, but Rodtang, that fight against Des Pirich was still pretty crazy at points. Even if Rodtang was in control, I think for pretty much the whole fight. But he did make it exciting by getting into some pretty crazy brawls with Dennis. And yeah, Moraes versus Yuya Wakamatsu. Adriano Moraes, of course, made his return at 1169, where he submitted Danny Kingad. In terms of Wakamatsu getting the next shot, if you watch my episode of the One Report where we covered everything from One Fight Night 26, I thought Reese McLaren might get the shot. Both Yuya Wakamatsu and Reese McLaren were in action at One Fight Night 26. Yuya Wakamatsu put on a pretty dominant performance against the debuting Gilbert Nakatani, whilst Reese McLaren, maybe I know that one championship's MMA bouts are scored as a whole, but if you were scoring it round by round, he did lose that first round against Jared Brooks. But considering that Jared Brooks is a world champion at the weight class below, it was a high-level fight. I thought that Reese McLaren might get the nod, but instead we've got Yuya Wakamatsu. I don't know how I feel about that one. I think Reese probably did deserve it more, but if, you have this Japan event, you're not going to put Adriano versus Reese on in Japan. I thought that we might get that for Qatar until we had the fights announced for Qatar already, which will, of course, be Jonathan Haggerty versus Wei Ray and Jared Brooks versus Joshua Pasio 3. When you look at Wakamatsu's recent run, he also has a win over Danny Kingad on this current run. And right there, 1x, March 2022, he suffered a submission loss to Adriano Moraes. So this will be their rematch for the vacant flyweight world championship. I think that even though Yuya put on a good performance last time out and Reese McLaren got a pretty big win over Jared Brooks, I don't think there's really any denying that Adriano Moraes is the best flyweight in the division now that Demetrius Johnson has, of course, retired and vacated the belt. So I would expect him to get the win, but you never know. And I thought Yuya Wakamatsu looked very, very sharp against Gilbert Nakatani. So I hope that this is a competitive fight. I'm sure it will be, but I would expect Moraes to get the job done there. I think that he is the clear top guy in this division right now, which makes sense considering him and Demetrius were the top two guys for such a long time. I say such a long time. It wasn't ages, but Adriano has been the top flyweight for a long time. DJ arrived, challenged that, came out on top in their trilogy, left. Adriano's the top guy again. I think that's, pretty self-explanatory. And I think that will just about do it for talking about this fight. I'm just having a quick scroll through here to see if there is anything that we have missed out. Some stuff here about Adriano and Yuya Wakamatsu. Yeah, I think that will pretty much do it. Let's pull back up the Instagram post here as we close out proceedings. As mentioned, I will be talking about a bunch of, I don't know if we'll be talking about this. Maybe we'll talk about the reaction to this fight and some other things like that. on tomorrow's episode of the One Report. But please do come and hang out and check that video out as well. Like I said, we'll be talking about a bunch of topics because there's been quite a busy week of stuff regarding One Championship. So I will see you then. Until then, thank you for checking out this video. Again, let me know in the comments below, are you more excited for this fight now that it has been rebooked than you were the first time around? Do you think, give me some matchups that One Championship should put on this card in order to make a success of the Saitama Super Arena? And I will catch you on an episode of the One Report in the near future, I am sure. Until then, peace.